the ADF didn't work. The magnetic compass was way off, and the gyro was precessing 10 degrees every hour. So we had a lot of stuff to do. So I got up to Moncton and I asked the guy, I said, somebody here to work on this stuff for us? And the guy said, no. He said, we can't, we're air base, we can't touch it. But he said, you can use our tools, So I took the ADF out and I found a problem there and I fixed it with a switch on the on-off switch. Had somebody dropped in on the switch, I guess. And anyway, I fixed that. And we reset the compass, the magnetic compass, with the compass rose up there, but the VG we could do nothing with. So we go up and then we go to Goose Bay, Labrador, and that's our jumping off point. We get to Goose Bay and the weather was really bad. They had a big front coming down the Atlantic coast there. And so we waited it out a couple of days. And finally we took off and there's a ship out there and it's kind of a right angle. If you fly out almost due east, they had what they call Ship Bravo, which was a combination of Danish, United States, and somebody else that maintained the ship, and it was a 1 mile square area, and they were a navigation ship, and you could find out from them, your distance and so forth. So we said that's a pretty good idea. So we take off at 4 in the morning, and the guy there at the radio station, he calls the ship, and he said, okay, we got a flight of, we had 2 airplanes we were taking over. A flight of 2 coming out. He says, turn on your ADF, signal so they can home in on you. So we take off. We're flying, and I turn the ADF on, and the needle comes up, and I thought, oh, we got him, So we're flying along, and all of a sudden I noticed the needle didn't move at all, which is strange. So I made a turn, and it still didn't move at all. What they had done is they turned the receiver back, or the transmitter back off. So I finally get them on the radio, Just between us guys, I think they were drunk. They'd been out there a long time and they were unhappy. And so we're talking to them and I said, okay, give me a range and bearing. How far are we from you? And so forth. So we're talking back and forth. And anyway, all of a sudden the needle does a 180, which means I just pass over the ship. He's telling us we're 30 miles away yet. And I said, okay, I said, give me a range and bearing we had to go to Narsarsuaq, to Greenland, and for our fuel stop. And he gives us this bearing that's heading straight for England or something. These guys are really goofy. And so we take a vote between the 4 of us, 2 in each airplane. 3 of us vote to go on. This is our point of no return. We don't make it from here, we got to go home, or else we run out of fuel. So we press on, and we made it, just dead reckoning, we made it to Greenland and found the airport and landed. And the end of that story right there, or back into that story, I came back home, I went to the Coast Guard in St. Louis, and I said, hey, you guys got a problem. This ship is worthless. I mean, they would have killed us if we'd listened to them, And he said, yeah. He said, we took care of it. He said, they took the ship off they don't have it anymore. They eliminated it. So anyway, we from there, left there, we landed in Greenland, and the guy says, how long you planning on staying? I said, well, we're going to sleep tonight, He said, well, he says, this fog bank, he says, it just moved out. Oh, and en route to there, back up on the story a little bit, en route, we're flying along and we're talking to this Ship Bravo, and this airline called Caledonia, which is no longer in business, but Caledonia 1 called, and he says, understand you're having a problem. I said, Roger. He says, well, we just passed over Greenland. He said, it's clear now. He said, the fog bank is just a few miles out. How long will it take you to get there? I said, oh, about 4 hours, 5 hours. He says, 5 hours? He said, what are you flying? I said, a Piper. He said, you got to be kidding. So anyway, we went in, and then the guy in Greenland said, boy, he said, that fog bank comes in. It might be here a week or 2. So we fueled it up, and off we went to Iceland. So we landed in Iceland about 4 in the morning, I guess, and stayed about 3 hours, slept about 3 or 4 hours, then took off and went to Ireland, London. And we got to London, and this is back in the days when the monetary situation was kind of, funny. They weren't, they didn't know what the dollar was doing. And the guy wouldn't accept dollars, so we had to go into London and get money to pay for the fuel. And then I guess the last story about that trip was we're flying from London, and we're going into Geneva, Switzerland. And we're flying along, and everything was just great. I folded up all the maps and put them away, and we called into our Paris, and as we're going through, and Paris says, what's your intentions? And we said, well, we're going to Geneva. He said, well, he said, that's a problem. He said, Geneva is closed to international traffic at 8 o'clock. It's 7 o'clock and we're 3 hours or 2.5 hours away. So I said, okay. So I get out the charts and I look around and I said, what's the closest airport? We got to land and stay over and get ready for the next day. And it's Dijon, France. So we're auguring down out of altitude, looking for the airport. It's dark now. Couldn't find the airport. So I call, and this voice comes on in French and says something, and I said, you know, we permission to land, and he says, good night, monsieur, and that's it, you know. So again, airlines came to our, this is TWA, and TWA called and says, I understand you're having a problem. I said, Roger. He says, I said, can you call Paris? Because we were too low to reach Paris, you know, out of range. So he relayed for us to Paris and said, get somebody in that tower that can speak English, you know. So finally they scramble around and the guy gets it, and then the lights come on. We couldn't find the airport. The lights come on. Whoop, there it is, you know. So we land and pull up, and we pull up, and 2 Jeeps come out, and they got guns on us, you know. And back in those days, there was a group called the Early Terrorists, which was called the Black September Group. And they thought that, because we were all beraggled, we hadn't shaved in days, you know, we look a mess. And anyway, we get out of the airplane, they take us to jail, and we cool our heels there because nobody spoke English. We couldn't explain ourselves. And finally, they bring a guy in about, I guess, 12 o'clock or something like that. And, he says, you know, he says, you're circling up there, and 2 of our jet fighters can't land. He says, and you're going to have to pay the fuel bill for the jet fighters, you know. And so anyway, they finally get us organized and explained. They checked on us, and we were okay. And so they let us go, and about midnight we went. I had something to eat, went to a motel, or a hotel rather, and came back in the morning, and they had fueled our airplanes for us, free. And the basic word was, get out and stay out. So that's probably my most interesting trip. And then when they interviewed me, they said, why would you do something like that? And I said, well, everybody brags about their cross-country trips. I said, I don't think they can top this one. So anyway, that was the most exciting trip, I guess. But
and the guys were happy with their planes once they got them, I hope?
Oh yeah, they flew them, and we spent, like I said, the newspaper at Lausanne, France. We went to Geneva, and then they were based in Lausanne. We flew to Lausanne, and they had a big party waiting for us, and they had the headlines on the newspaper that said Lindbergh's arrived, you know, and all that. And they had the people that were interested in aviation, which there's a lot. Europeans are really aviation oriented, especially the English. But we were invited. We were there for about 8 days, and we averaged 3 parties a day, because everybody wanted us to come to their house and talk to their friends about flying over the Atlantic Ocean. But yeah, we had a great time. We ate a lot of great food and had a lot of great wine, a lot of vino, good stuff.
Great. Well, thank you very much. I think that.
I don't know how much of that you can use, but